This is his room. He really didn't take much with him. I was actually surprised how many personal things he left behind. My name's Carla. I'm Jacob's mother. Jacob was unfortunately a latchkey kid, which means he would come home and no one was here, so he had to take care of himself. I think that's really hard on a kid.
Well, I took individual and team sports with Jacob, and our lockers were next to each other. I would always try to be really friendly to him because it seemed like no one ever really talked to him. It was kind of weird, but I thought I'd give him a chance, you know. So our lockers were next to each other, and I recognized him from junior high, but I didn't really know him. So I said, "You're Jacob, right? Well, I'm Tyler." And I reached out my hand, saying, "It's nice to meet you." I wanted to shake his hand, right? He just looks me right in the eye. He says, "No thanks, but it's nice to meet you."
And besides that, he suffered with dyslexia, which made his homework and his reading and his writing, everything about school harder. And then when he started feeling bad about himself because of that, he kind of found himself in a different group of strugglers.
I won't play RuneScape with anyone in the world but Jacob Scott Bernier. Of course I remember him. We played it so much that we got it blocked from the school, like no one else could play it.
You know, there was really one thing that stood out to me. It was I remember in my 8th grade year, I owed this kid named Jay Stalin like $50 for a snowboard that I wanted to rent.
Titus Brown. I don't really like Titus Brown. Let me tell you about Titus Brown. He owed me $50 for like 3 years.
So my freshman year when I got to school, you know, I'd see Jace, and he remembered about the $50. So he kept nagging me about it, and just finally one day got up in my face about it.
I'm all up in his face, and I'm like, "Dude, where's my $50? And he's like, "Oh, I never saw you. Oh, I don't know. I don't have the money."
He's kind of pushing me, and then I remember Jacob actually came over and paid off that $50, which was, I mean, it was crazy, you know, something that'll stick with me for probably the rest of my life.
Hands me a $50 bill. And so I'm holding it, and I look at Jacob, and I'm like, "Dude, you don't have to pay me off. This kid is supposed to pay me off." And he's like, "Just take it. Don't worry about it. Leave him alone." He was a really cool guy. I wish he'd come back and play some RuneScape with me sometime.
Then he started hanging out with Chase.
Yeah, I was at Kendrick Park, and I was like, I saw this kid, I said, "Hey, you want to smoke?" And, you know, I will smoke, and he's like, "All right, I'll do it." You know, and the tree's up there,
Yeah.
You know, and I wanted someone to smoke with. All my friends had pretty much gone home.
I really didn't know a lot about Chase, and I think that's probably a bad thing on a mom part.
Yeah.
Once he started hanging out with him, he started staying out late, talking back to me. He was like a whole other kid.
Yeah.
Trip out, just walk around at night.
And one day, he didn't come home at all. I stayed up all night so worried about him.
And
The next day when he didn't come home, I went to the police station and I reported him missing.
haven't really seen him since then, but
So, we got past it because we had a heart-to-heart about what he was going through, what he needed from me. He needed me to back off.
Yeah.
But he was still my kid.
He'd always just draw in his notebooks, usually listen to music. He just kind of sat alone. You'd always see him at the musicals and whatnot.
Yeah.
He would just hang out there, drawing. always had a smile on his face, but he's always alone.
I don't remember. I don't think I ever actually talked to him, but he always like sat alone at lunch. Like he had friends, but like he'd never sit with them. Always had the earphones in too.
Yeah.
Jacob Scott Bernier was one of those kids that was fairly quiet, didn't really know him very well, and when I tried to talk to him in the lunchroom or just casual conversation, I could always tell that he really didn't like me visiting with him very much.
He was always talking to Mr. Ryan. Like whenever I'd have to go in after school for help, he was always in there, like every day. It was weird.
He seemed to really pick up and enjoy a lot of the same music that means a lot to me and that I relate to. And I could see part of myself in Jacob, and it made me wonder what was going on in his background as far as his home life, friends, aspirations, things like that. So I became very concerned about that, and continue to be concerned about those things even now.
He dropped out, right?
Yeah, he did.
Because wasn't it his dad that like gave him a job somewhere?
His dad was wanting him to move to Utah. He promised him a job there, and that was just so much more appealing than struggling in school. He knew he wasn't going to graduate.
I was disappointed to see him drop out of school.
Before he dropped out, we tried very hard to convince him not to do so. We couldn't talk him into staying, which breaks my heart. And unfortunately, he dropped out last year.
So now he is there, and hardly anyone keeps in touch with him but me anymore. I mean, even I don't get to hear from him as often as I'd like. I was actually surprised how many personal things he left behind. Makes me sad every time I walk by.